my name's Amanda and welcome to part 3 of my Quilt Along With Me series. If you're following along with me, we are now up to the part where we're ready to baste our quilt. So in this video I will be showing you the way that I like to make a pieced quilt bag, and I'll also be chatting about the different types of batting that I like to use, and then I'll also show you the method that I use to baste my quilt. Just like the past 2 videos, there is an information sheet or a pattern sheet that goes along with this video. There is a link down in the description box where you can easily click on it and get the sheet to print out. So let's dive straight into it by chatting about our backing. Now I've chosen to use this coloured homespun. It is called Lipstick, and I thought it was just the most perfect shade of purple, pink, whatever you want to call it, to go with my geometric fabric that I've got. I think it matches really well with this type of colour that's in it. Now in regards to how much fabric that we need to have a look at the size or the length that our quilt top is. And because it's close to 150 or 59 inches sort of squared, we're not going to be able to get a quilt backing that's big enough from one full length of fabric if you're buying it by the meter. Because most quilt fabrics are 112 centimeters or 44 inches wide, obviously that's not going to be wide enough to fit the back of our quilt. So when I have this issue with quilts that are too big for the normal size width of quilting fabrics, what I do is I double the width. So in our case, because our quilt is about 150 centimeters wide, I'm doubling that number to make it 3 meters, and then I always like to add another 10 centimeters onto each side, so I have just a little bit extra to play around with. So altogether I've bought 3.2 meters to be able to have enough fabric to do the backing of this quilt. Now if you didn't understand anything that I have just said and I totally confused you, check out the pattern sheet for a more simplistic explanation. So now let's quickly just go through the steps of how to make a pieced backing. So once you've bought your backing fabric, open it out and fold the length in half. It should measure about 1.6 meters or 63 inches. Using fabric scissors, cut the fabric in half along the fold, leaving you with 2 lengths of fabric measuring 1.6 meters by 112 centimeters or 63 inches by 44 inches wide. Open out the 2 fabric lengths and sew them together along the selvage edge. Ensure to sew about 1/4 inch in from the selvage so that it won't be seen on the other side. Next, using a rotary blade and long ruler, trim the selvage edge off, leaving 1/4 inch seam along the whole edge. Press this seam flat open using the tip of your iron, and then give the whole of the backing piece a good steamy press. And once I've pressed my backing fabric as well as I can, I just like to lay it down on the floor where I will be basting, just to avoid any excess wrinkles and to make sure it stays as perfect as I've made it. So that is the quilt backing done, and we are now ready to chat about batting. Now everyone likes to use different types of batting, and that is completely okay. For me, I like to use cotton batting because I like that it is a natural product, and I really like the handle of it, the feel of it, and the way that it goes through my sewing machine, and I like the end result. It just makes a quilt nice and warm. Now because the majority of my quilt top has been made using white homespun, I've decided to use a bleached cotton fibre batting called Warm and White. It's this brand here by the Warm Company. If you've seen it in your quilt store, then you'll know the one that I'm talking about. It's this really nice fresh white batting. I really like how thin it is. It's nice and lightweight, and when I put this white batting behind my white fabric, it'll just make everything look a lot more brighter and crisper compared to the other batting that I usually use, which is this one. This is just a natural cotton batting. Because it's got a creamy type colour to it, it's going to make my quilt top look just a little bit dull and not as sort of fresh and crisp as the white batting will make my quilt look. So the width of the Warm and White batting that I bought was 228 centimeters or 90 inches, and because our quilt is about 150 centimeters wide, I knew that if I bought about 1.7 meters I would have enough to cover the back, but also just that little bit extra that I like to have around the edges. The reason why I like to have a little bit of extra backing and batting around the edges of my quilt top is it just allows for any movement that will happen during your quilting, which will happen even though you have basted it. In all reality, it's fabric and it's going to move no matter how much you sort of baste it or spray it or whatever you do. Fabric is going to move no matter what you do to it. So always compensate just a little bit extra around all of your edges, just so you don't get caught out. Now that we've had a little chat about the different battings we can use, let's get on to how we can baste it all together. So like I said at the start of the video, I'm just going to go through the way that I like to baste my quilt. Now the way that I baste my quilt could be completely different to the way that you do it, and that is totally fine. Everybody's got their different ways of doing it. Everybody bastes a quilt the way that they feel comfortable doing and the way that they feel is the most economic, the most quickest. But this is just the way that I have found it to be easier for me and quicker, because basting is the one step of quilt making that I absolutely hate. And if I can do it quickly and easily, then I'm going to do it that way. So this is just the way that I like to do it. So first, of course, I lay my backing fabric out on the floor as you have just seen. Then I carefully lay the quilt top over it, centering the join seam on the backing with the center of the quilt top. With fabric scissors, I then cut off the excess backing fabric, leaving about 10 to 20 centimeters out from the quilt top edge. I then pick both layers up and place them to one side so that I can now lay out my batting. I make the batting as smooth and even as I can. Then I lay the backing fabric right side up on top of it as close to the bottom edge as possible. And like the batting, I make it as smooth and as even as I can. Once I'm happy, I'll cut the excess batting off from the top as close as I can to the backing fabric. Next, I carefully flip the two layers over and smooth them down once again. The quilt top is laid out on top of the batting, and I make sure that it's centered evenly with the backing fabric as I smooth and even out the edges and corners. So now is the time where we really are going to do the technique of basting our quilt. And basting is pretty much just securing all of those three layers together so we can feed them through the sewing machine all at one time. And there are many different ways you can baste your quilt. You can do it the really traditional way with a needle and thread by just doing little tack stitches all along the quilt top. You can also use pins, preferably ones that are curved. They will just make everything a whole lot easier. You can also do it the way that I will be showing you, and that is spray basting with a really cool adhesive spray. And one other thing that you can also use that I've only just found out about over the last couple of days through my friends on Instagram is to use iron-on batting. I haven't really ever heard of iron-on batting before. I don't know how well it works. If you're one of those people that have and do use iron-on batting, comment below and let me know what you think of it and how you get on with it and how well it quilts. I'm really quite intrigued to know how that works. But I'm going to be showing you how to use spray basting. This is the method that I like to use because it's quick, it's simple, it's fast, and I just really like it. So here are the steps that I take when I spray baste a quilt. So I start by first rolling back the quilt top to about the center and then doing the same with the batting. I evenly spray on a good amount of basting spray and then roll back the batting layer, smoothing it out starting from the center and then out to the edges. Then I spray again evenly over the batting layer, rolling the quilt top back into place and smoothing it down, starting in the center and going outwards. Once this side has been done, I gently turn the quilt layers around and repeat the same set of steps to baste the other half of the quilt. I'll then give the quilt a good press just to ensure all of the layers are as smooth as I humanly can get them. And I also just like to think that steam pressing the layers together just sort of sets the adhesive spray in place. I mean, I can still sort of lift up the layers if I need to reposition them, but I just like to I don't know, it just gives me peace of mind to just iron it and make it perfect. So just a few tips when you're using spray basting. It's ideal to do this outside. Now I didn't this time because it's been raining in Sydney over the last week. The backyard is pretty much flooded. Well, no, not really. It's just really wet and I don't really want to put a quilt out there. But if like me and you do need a spray inside, just make sure it's really well ventilated. You've got all the windows open, you've got the doors open, and you don't sort of breathe it in a lot because it's a pretty dangerous chemical and it's got adhesives in it and you don't really want to be breathing that in a lot. So like I said at the start of this video sometime, I want to encourage you to baste your quilt in the way that you most feel comfortable in doing. You don't have to do it the way that I did it. You can use any basting technique or tool that you love using. Just do it the way that you know how. Pretty much. That's all I'm saying. And if you do have any cool tips or questions or anything about backing, about batting, about basting, comment below and we can have a great little chat about it together. And another thing that I've been saying all throughout this video, you will find all of the measurements and cutting instructions and pretty much everything that I've chatted about in this video in a more simplistic sort of way in the pattern sheet or the information sheet. It's not really a pattern sheet, it's more of an information sheet. The link to it is down below in the description box. Click on it and it will take you to my blog where you can print it off and read it. Part 4 is all about quilting our quilt. Yes! So in that video I will be going through the different ways you can quilt your quilt, as well as the way that I like to do it and the design that I will be doing, as well as the way that I like to set up my machine and my space for quilting, and some just general type tips to make the whole experience lovely and non-stressful if you are quilting it on a domestic sewing machine. And of course, please keep sharing with me your completed blocks and quilt tops. Some of you have actually already finished making your quilt, which is just awesome. That is just so cool. All of the links to the places that you can share your pictures with me are down below in the description box as well. Possibly the best place to share your pictures with me would be Instagram, Twitter or Facebook. So I'm going to say goodbye before I ramble on anymore. So thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you another time very soon. Bye! So now we're at the stage where we're going to piece on our last 2 border strips and then the quilt top is done. Yeah! And to do this we're just going to simply place and pin another border strip onto one of the sides that hasn't been bordered up yet. So do this by obviously pinning it on like before.